Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so I had a question from a viewer a week, 2, 3, something ago, and his question was, which class of stone creates, I think he said, a better edge? So better being sharper, longer lasting. Better can be classed in a whole bunch of different ways. Like I said, the level of sharpness, I would guess, the edge retention of that edge, the suitability of that edge for your work, just a whole bunch of different things. And he was suggesting doing some rope cutting tests, pitting stones between each other. At first that sounds like a really good idea. You could take this stone, versus this stone, take a particular knife, sharpen up that knife on this stone, do some rope cutting tests, sharpen it up on this stone, do some rope cutting tests, do each one of them, 5 times for each stone, and average the results, and you would get a result, right? Now that result, you would think, might tell you, okay, well, this edge is better than this edge. Well, yes and no. It would give you a result as, this edge might have been better than this edge on that cutting medium with that guy running the knife and or stones. Okay? So, and that's something that my friend Cliff Stamp taught me. Okay, now Cliff Stamp and I, we've never actually met in person. He lives in Canada, I live here in the States. I guess if I ever make it to Canada, I'll probably call him up and say, hey Cliff, what part of Canada do you live in? And, if that's where I'm headed, ask him if he'd be okay with a visit. And I would certainly hope that he would do the same, if he came down to the States. But, in today's day and age, you got friends all over the world. So Cliff taught me about taking you out of the equation, right? How much of an effect that the tester, the guy that's sharpening, the guy that's cutting, might be the same guy, how much of an effect you have on the test, purposefully or unpurposefully, okay? So an example of that is, let's say you got a brand new stone, right? So, you got this really nice hard arc from Natural Whetstone Company, right? And, you've been saving up for this stone for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or a day or, depends on your finances. You've been saving up for this stone forever. You've been agonizing over the choices of Arkansas stones out there, and you selected this stone. You went ahead, you pulled the trigger, you got out the credit card, you called them up, or you got on their website, you ordered it up, you waited for it, it got there in a couple of days, you rip open the box, you're so excited, you sharpen up your first knife on it, you lay that knife into the rope, and it might cut the way you wanted it to, or it might not cut the way you wanted it to, but you're so excited about that stone that you put more pressure on that knife to make the knife cut just a little bit longer than where you would normally say, okay, that's dull. Because you're so excited about the stone, right? Now that could be, you might be doing it on purpose, you might not be doing it on purpose. So that's the sort of thing that Cliff, really pointed out to me, to really look for that in your testing. So what we're going to do today, a spoiler alert, I'm not going to take an edge and, sharpen it with this stone and sharpen it with this stone and cut some rope with it to decide, which one's best. In this case, a manual or a man-made oil stone versus a man-made water stone. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, hold on. Okay, so what I've got here across the bench is we have got some Arkansas stones. We've got a black the black translucent from Natural Whetstone Company, hard arc from them, soft arc from them, Norton Fine India, the Norton Medium Crystalline, which I haven't played with, my 2 normal Norton Crystalline Combo coarse fines, a Nanawa 12K Waterstone, King 1/6 Waterstone, Suhiro 1/6 Waterstone, Norton 220 grit Waterstone, Norton 221,000. You know, I can't remember at the moment who made this stone, but it's an 800 grit Waterstone and a diamond plate. You know, well, that'll be enough. I'll just, no, hang on. This is the only natural Waterstone that I have. It's what they call a Belgian blue Waterstone. So we'll set that out at the same time. Okay, so I got a list. What we're going to do is I'm just going to give you my thoughts on, we've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 different criteria to compare these stones for. And I hope that'll kind of give you an idea about which, I mean, I'm not going to say one stone is better than the other, because better has to do with you know, the guy that's running the stone, or the gal, the medium that you're cutting, the steel type that you're using, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is just kind of going to give you kind of an idea of what my thoughts are on these 4 classes of sharpening stones, and then you can make your own conclusions from that. You know, purchase what you want, all that kind of thing. I mean, I don't sell any of these stones, so I'm not going to make any money off, you know, you guys just purchasing one or the other. About the only interest I have in that outcome is that I do want you to, you know, make an informed choice, and I want you to be happy with whatever stone you get. And I want you to use it and sharpen your knives and enjoy sharp knives, you know. I mean, hey, my YouTube personality is all about enjoying sharp knives, whether they're knives that I made and sold to you, or made for you, either way, or they're knives that you purchased from another maker, or, you know, a factory knife, you know, whatever. I just want you to enjoy sharp knives, because dull knives are, you know, they're just so dull, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's start off with grit range. Now, this is not in any particular order. It's just a list that I jotted down right quick. Grit range. Okay, this is where I think the man-mades have got it all over the naturals. Okay, so your Arkansas stones, right? So you've got a soft Arkansas. To my knowledge, this is the coarsest rated Arkansas type stone. Okay. Now, granted, they're natural stones, so, you know, I think everybody pretty much agrees that, you know, 400 to 600 grit is the rating off of this type of stone. Now, that also depends on how you have the stone lapped and conditioned, okay? If your stone is glazed over, you know, this soft Arkansas stone could act like a 3,000 grit stone, you know. If it's freshly lapped, you know, it could act more like a 350-ish grit stone, you know. It just depends on the condition of the stone, how it's lapped and everything, all right? But so you know, these will only get so coarse, okay? Now, trying to shape an edge, you know, on a brand new knife that's got really bad geometry, or one that's been damaged a lot, sharpening chips out of edges and stuff, you know, you're going to be at that for a while with a soft Arkansas stone, okay? So, like I said, these are, you know, for the most part, 400 to 600 grit rating, and then your, you know, your higher end ones, like this Natural Whetstone Company, they call this the translucent black. Okay, so this one, it's got 600 on there, but that's what I have that side condition to. You know, this is going to be probably, you know, a 6,000 to 8,000 grit, you know, finish on your edges, somewhere around like that. Okay, so your natural oil stones are not really going to have anything on the low end, you know, for fixing chips and broken tips and stuff like that. Your man-made oil stones, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, okay, and those are primarily the Norton stones, Norton / Pike. I've got some older Pikes too. Now, that's like these ones right here, this, you know, huge chunk of happiness. The crystalline coarse fine. Okay, your coarse is going to be right around 100 grit. Your fine is going to be around a 300 grit. Okay, this right here is my workhorse. All right, that is the stone that I do almost all of the primary shaping of edges. Okay, or if I've got a knife that's really, chipped, broken tips, stuff like that, and I don't want to put it on the grinder, that is the stone that I use. It is incredibly efficient at what it does, which is hog steel off. Okay, the fine crystalline and the fine India, those are both great working edge finish type stones. All right. Now the man-made oil stones, I've never really looked. I don't know if they do go higher than, I think this fine India, I would class it at 350, 400 grit-ish, something like that. I'm not aware if they do get higher in grits than that. If they did, I'm not too certain I would buy one or not. The water stones, okay, they're kind of along the same lines. Okay, your natural water stones like this Belgian blue, I've heard these are all over the place, or people's perception of these are all over the place. I've heard folks say that this right here is nothing more than like a really fine bevel setter type on straight razors, all the way to, hey, this will sharpen as good as the cauticles. I've never had a cauticle, never sharpened on one. I couldn't tell you. Same class as these would be like your J-Nats and your can't remember what kind of stone, the name of the stone, but it's a natural stone, and then you take another stone, a slurry stone, and you rub it on that stone, and that's how you change your grit ratings. But anyhow, these are usually a much higher grit stone, 4,000 plus, something like that. Your man-made water stones, the coarsest one that I'm aware of, or that I own, is the Norton 220 grit. This stone is very coarse. It is very abrasive. It's very fast cutting, but it's also very soft. Okay. Yeah, I can pretty much carve into it with my thumbnail. Now that white line right there was some of my thumbnail, but there's also a little bit of a groove in there. So they've got, now the man-made water stones, you're looking at 220. There might be some coarser, all the way up to the finest one that I have is a Nanawa 12K, okay, which is super fine, straight razor finishing only type of stone. Okay, so that's where your grit range comes in. Your cost, okay, now that's all over the place too. The man-made oil stones and the man-made water stones, I think that's where you get your best value. Okay, so I mean, natural stones are cool and everything. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's a gorgeous, chunk of rock. I mean, so's that one, and then the translucent black. I mean, these are gorgeous, very attractive rocks, right? But they don't have the repeatability of man-made stones. Okay, you pick up this stone right here. I tell you, okay, well, I like this stone on this particular steel with this sharpening method. You can order the same stone from sharpeningsupplies.com or anybody, and you're going to get the same stone and the same results if you do it the same way I do, right? Okay, they're all the same because they're man-made. They're very consistent and a very good value. The same way with the water stones. This King 1/6, same way. When they made these stones, they put all this grit through a screen, and they, this is the 6,000 grit side. Only 6,000 grit particles and finer would have gone into the making of this stone. Okay, so there's no question that is a 1,000, 6,000 grit stone. And because they're man-made, the costs are lower. Okay, my favorite one to suggest to everybody, these two stones right here. So your Norton crystalline coarse fine, $20 stone on Amazon. Your King 1/6, $28 or $33 on Amazon. So for roughly $50, you've got 100 grit, 300 grit, 1000 grit, and 6000 grit, and they work really well together. You take an edge, that's, all jacked up. You can, completely reset the edge on the coarse side, clean it up on the fine side, clean it up more on the 1000 grit, polish it on your 6000, and strop it and, start shaving with it. That's totally doable. Your naturals, the more rare and the more excited everybody is about them, the higher the cost. Yeah, we can go like that. I think that'll do the cost part. I've got written on here, heavy-handed. Now this has to do with the person behind the stone. In my shop, I use man-made oil stones for the majority of the work, okay? And for work, I mean sharpening all my shop knives. It's really rare that I go outside of, this class of stones right here, the crystalline coarse fine, the India fine, and I have been playing around with the hard arcs a little bit. I suppose what I should do is sharpen up my pocket knife with the King 1/6, put a 1000 grit edge on it, run it for a week or two, put a 6000 grit edge, run it for a week or two, and see if I like them. Honestly, I don't think I will for an everyday using type of knife. For a kitchen knife, if a person cuts primarily with a push cut, I can see that really helping a lot. I cut everything on a draw, so I don't really see me liking that edge very much. But, that has to do with, the way I like to cut. The heavy-handedness, since I'm a production maker, right? I make a whole bunch of knives. This is this last batch right here, right? Okay, so just today I sharpened all of those. While I had the stones out, I went ahead and sharpened my pocket knife. So that's 8 different knives I sharpened today. I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed and want things to work like fast, because to me in the shop, I do enjoy being out in the shop, but time is money, okay? I don't want to spend, I don't even want to spend 10 minutes sharpening a knife. If I can get the job done in 3 minutes, I'm going to pick 3 minutes over 10 minutes, okay? The man-made oil stones give me that. They give me that kind of speed and that kind of efficiency, as long as I keep them dressed with the loose silicon carbide powder and the plate glass, which I've got some other videos on that. The water stones, for me, like this Norton 220 grit water stone. I have a video on this calling it a game changer for shaping edges, and it is. Remember how I was talking about being excited about a stone? I think I was a little bit overexcited. It's a great stone, don't get me wrong, but this stone in my hands tends to be muddy and soft, okay? It doesn't, it'll shape an edge. I could get along perfectly using this stone the rest of my career, but I don't like it as much as the Norton coarse stone. That could be I got more time in with the Norton, the crystalline coarse stone, maybe not, I don't know. But for me, these stones right here, the man-made oil stones, I can lay into them with some pressure, and honestly, they'll strip steel off of an edge almost as fast as, no, I can't say that. They're not near as fast as a belt grinder, but, they're very, very efficient. So I can lay into them hard, or I can lighten up and, refine things with them. With the water stones, we don't get along quite like that for kitchen knives, pocket knives, stuff like that. With straight razors, we get along really good. That's why I keep them around, is primarily for straight razors. So if you've got a lighter touch, the water stones might be a better idea than the oil stones. 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. That's all about your preference, right? Okay, so the style of sharpening. There's 2 main styles of sharpening, right? Your burr-based with a micro bevel and your plateau method, okay? Primarily, I am a burr-based with a micro bevel kind of sharpener. Okay. The biggest reason for that is, hey, there is no guesswork. Okay, which is why that's the style that I teach of sharpening to anybody that's new. Because there's no guesswork, there's no question, there's no nothing. You take your knife, you sharpen this side until you get a burr on this side. You sharpen on that side till you get a burr on that side. Okay. Then on your coarse side, your fine side, then you sharpen on this side till you get the burr on this side. Sharpen it on this side till you get the burr on this side. That cleans everything up, right? Now you refine that burr, you lighten up on your pressure, you weaken the burr, and then you shear the burr off on a freshly oiled stone, whether it's the fine India or the fine crystalline. Okay, step by step. Do this till this happens. Do this till this happens. Do this till this happens. Do this, and bam, you will shave. Shave hair off your arm, cut newsprint, you know, all that kind of stuff. There's no question about it, right? Which is why I like that system so much. The plateau-based method is a little bit different. There, it's more of a experience and a feel for that type of steel on that stone. Okay, from what I've seen, your oil stones work better with a micro bevel type of deal. All right. The biggest reason for that, they're harder. Okay. These water stones, I told you this one was very soft, right? Well, they release abrasives so fast that you're never really going to have a surface that doesn't have bits and pieces of the particle floating all around in it. Okay? So if you go to do a micro bevel on a stone that isn't, that doesn't have bits and pieces of trash floating on the top, well, then those little bitty pieces of trash are going to impact your edge instead of cutting a micro bevel. Does that make any sense? Clear as mud? Maybe. Okay. So these type of stones work much better on the plateau type method, which is stone stropping. Where you you dull the knife to where you've got light reflecting off the edge of it, and then you sharpen until that light is gone. A couple of more strokes, and there you are. Okay, so for a micro bevel type, your man-made oil stones and also your natural oil stones, if they've been prepped right, are the best for a micro bevel style of sharpening. Okay, so your availability is the next one. We're at 23 minutes, so I'm going to have to speed it up. Your availability. I think that's where oil stones have got it, okay, for the most part. I mean, today's day and age, with Amazon and Amazon Prime, if I need any of these stones, I can run in there, fire up the laptop, boom, have the stone to my door in like 2 or 3 days. So availability does kind of counts a little bit, all right? This stone right here, I can buy here in town, okay, maybe just from one place, Murdoch's, the local ranch and supply house. You can pick up these in town, and your Arkansas stones, they're starting to make a little bit of a comeback. I can find them at Murdoch's here in town, and I think Sportsman's Warehouse carries some. Walmart carries your Trihone system, okay, which has got a soft Arkansas as your finishing stone. Your water stones, I don't know that I've ever seen a water stone in town in a normal store. So take that for what it is. Your mess. Some folks don't like oil stones. They don't like the oil that goes with it. I can kind of sort of see that a little bit. If you're using like a petroleum-based oil, wondering if some of that petroleum-based oil is going to stay on your kitchen knife and get transferred to your food, and then you're going to eat it. I can kind of see that. The smell of some petroleum-based oils, might not appeal to some folks. But honestly, for oil stones, I use mineral oil. They sell it as wood and bamboo oil. I buy it by the gallon from the Farm and Ranch Supply House. I guess they feed it to cows for some reason or other. So mineral oil is a food grade oil. So I guess, you could ingest some of it and it's not going to hurt you. I don't notice that it's got an odor, except for like baby oil, which, God, I cannot stand. I mean, that just brings back horrible memories, from when my kids were young. So I hardly ever use that sort of stuff. But if you use mineral oil, straight up food grade mineral oil, it works perfect. A lot of guys use Dawn and water, in different ratios, and that's nice and clean, keeps your stone fairly clean. So that part you just kind of have to decide for yourself. Water stones, you do just use water, but you also, they're soft, so you're creating a slurry, which is kind of water and mud a little bit. So they've got their own mess also. Along with that, here in Wyoming, we get fairly cold. So I keep an oil stone in my truck. I don't keep water stones in my truck because, when water gets into a crack on a rock and it freezes, it'll bust that rock apart. I don't want that happening in my truck with a water stone. The oil stones, I don't really see that as being a problem with the mineral oil. Also, I do have one of these stones in my kitchen that I've been using instead of a sharpening steel. I've just kept a normal stone in my kitchen now for the past month, and I've been using it with straight water from the tap. And, I've just been using it for touch-ups and stuff, but it hasn't glazed over yet, and it's still giving me good edges. So when I get more experience with that, I'll let you know about it. The maintenance. Okay. The maintenance, water stones have got it, right? Okay, so all I ever use with water stones is one of these. Okay, this is a worn-out Smith's 325 interrupted surface sharpening stone. They discontinued this one, and of course I think I've got two of them. I really like this. Used to really like the stone for sharpening knives, and I love it for dressing water stones. Okay, because it cuts. It will cut these stones very efficiently. And, you just do it underneath running water in the sink, and there's not a whole lot of mess. So, but then again, this, I think, was like $70 too. So if you already have a couple of worn out diamond stones, they work perfect for dressing your water stones. To dress your oil stones, you need loose silicon carbide powder. This is about the best I've found for hobbyists. This thing right here, which I think you can get this on Amazon for quite a bit cheaper than that. But this right here is enough to dress your stones, probably for a good decade for a normal hobbyist, right? And plate glass. It's a little messy, but that's about the best way I found to do it. Your actual cutting edge. Now this part has everything to do with the person that's using the stone and the knife, okay? So I have the most experience with knives with the man-made oil stones and diamond stones, okay? Diamond stones also work really good with a micro bevel. All right, so if I was to do a test, let's say, and we wanted to keep everything even, we'd use one knife, and we'd use an oil stone and a water stone. We'd have to sharpen with two different methods, unless we did the plateau method with the oil stone, okay? Which most of my experience is with micro bevels, right? Not to say that I can't put a good edge on with the plateau method, but most of my experience is with micro bevels, right? So, and then you would have your grit ratings because they're different, okay? So like a, well, I don't know if they're different on the lower end. I'd have to think about that for a little bit. But I think that the edge off of a typical 1,000 grit water stone is probably going to be like a soft arc, a 400 to 600 grit range. Okay, so you would have to take both. You'd have to find a guy or a gal that was equally proficient with water stones and oil stones, and have them sharpen that same knife with, each stone, and cut the same medium, say, rope, manila rope, and average that, minimum of probably 5 times per sharpening to get a number. And then what you would get is, okay, well, whichever one won, was that because that grit was best suited for rope, or because the oil stone actually did produce a superior edge in that test? That's why I'm really leery of doing a test like that, because there's just too many variables to say oil stones are better than water stones. In my shop, which is really, the only thing that matters all that much to me, is because that's, my work. I like the man-made oil stones for the bulk of my shaping and working edges on pocket knives, kitchen knives, choppers, axes, all that kind of stuff, right? I have been playing around a little bit with the natural Arkansas stones, primarily the soft and the hard, for like kitchen knives and stuff, okay? Also for straight razors. Straight razors are beautifully suited to natural Arkansas stones. I usually save the water stones for straight razors, because that's really the only thing the only place where I like a highly polished edge. All my knives, I typically run very toothy edges, and I like the aggressiveness that I get with a toothy edge. I don't really care for the highly polished type edges very much, not in the work that I do. But straight razors, I really do enjoy water stones. And straight razors also are, remember the heavy-handedness? Having that difference in my work really helps out with that too. So when I pick up an oil stone, I typically vary the pressure to do whatever it is that I need to get done. If I've got a lot of chips, I lay into the stone. If you're trying to refine it, back off the pressure considerably. But then when I go to pick up a water stone, I pick up the water stone, I feel the water on my hands while I'm honing with it, and then I'm into very, very light pressure, which is what you need with a straight razor. So that kind of helps to make that difference for me in sharpening different classes of tools. So anyway, well, that's the end of the list. Hope that cleared some things up a little bit for you. Now, granted, this is only man-made oil stones, man-made water stones, a little bit of natural water stones, natural oil stones, okay? This does not have, I don't have really any experience with the ceramic stones, or the, no. Yeah, forget that. Also with diamonds, we haven't really talked about diamonds a whole lot in here, except for the fact that diamonds work pretty much like your man-made silicon carbide stones, only the diamonds are much harder. So if you ever got into a type of steel that silicon carbide won't cut, diamonds are where it's at. And I've never really run into that. Heck, even, 1095 at, full hardness, a silicon carbide stone will cut that like it's nothing, And I don't work with anything besides 1095, 5160, 52100, 440C, some W1, and, some recyclable seals. And any of that, silicon carbide will cut just fine any day of the week. So anyway, I hope that gives you kind of a quick overview of the oil stone versus water stone debate. I'm not going to pick a winner, except for to say that I prefer oil stones for working edges, water stones for straight razors. You know, talk to another knife maker, he'll probably give you a different answer or the same answer, or, you know, it doesn't matter. So, but I would suggest picking up these two stones and then, you know, sharpening with both of them and seeing which one you like the best. Again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you get out there and start sharpening, and we will see you next time.